Hi everyone, this is Dan and the future holds crypto. Today I'm gonna try to do a short video because it's very late here, I don't have a lot of time. But I've seen some interesting news. I've seen a lot of news, but I'm gonna try to speak about a few. Let's start a little bit with the market, but I'm gonna be short. I mean, you can look at yourself in general. I don't see anything spectacular compared to the last time. Let's look a little bit on the trading signals that we receive from Trading Central. So if we go on BTC, on the 30 minutes chart, it says that it's going to go to $11,780. That's a bullish sign. On the 1 day, it still shows $13,800. So that's, my opinion on that. If we go there, it might be very easier to reach the previous all-time high. So it will be interesting to see. Probably it'll be more in November, so it's a good sign. If we go to ETH, on the 30 minutes chart, it says 398. On the 1 day, it says 533. It's still bullish. If we go to XRP, it shows 32 cents on 1 day chart, and on the 30 minutes 25 cents. Looking good as well. Now let's go to the Dow Jones. On the 30 minutes chart, it says 28,950. On the 1 day, it shows 30,800. 1 week, $31,800. Not bad. Not bad. It still shows bullish here as well. You know why I'm smiling? It's because for the moment we've seen that crypto in general is kind of correlated to the stock market, and until we see it move away from it in correlation, it's interesting to watch them in parallel, right? So if we go on S&P 500 on the 30 minutes, you'll see that it shows 3,500. On the 1 day, it shows 3,700. 1 week, 3,800. So still very bullish indicators in general. That's by the way, remember, this is not financial advice. This is and now that what we see here are just some forecasts or based on some indicators. So and we have a lot of things going on in the world right now, everything with the elections, with the pandemic, with the possible growing economic crisis. So everything can change drastically in a very short time frame. Keep that in mind. So these are just indicators, and reality can change very, very fast in the other direction. But it's important to look at them and to see at least what they show up until now. Other than that, let's go to something else that I wanted to show you. You know that we talked about the fact that we see everywhere, but in a lot of places, we see on World Economic Forum, on World Bank, on IMF, people saying that we need a great reset. And what does that mean? Of course, there are a lot of speculations in place. We don't know. However, I do feel that something will happen that will shift, will change the way that the economical system works, or basically it will impact everyone. What and how I don't know. I'm not sure a lot of people that do know. However, we see a lot of indicators of something happening soon. And we see IMF again talking about we see Kristina Georgieva, the IMF managing director, talking about a new Bretton Woods moment. Um, Reflecting on the dramatic change in the world over the last year, I paid a visit to Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, where 44 men signed our Articles of Agreement in 1944. Our founders faced two massive tasks: to deal with immediate devastation caused by the war and to lay the foundation for a more peaceful and prosperous post-war world. At the conclusion of the conference, John Maynard Keynes captured the significance of international cooperation as hope for the world. If we can continue, the brotherhood of man will have become more than phrase, he said. Well, today we face a new Bretton Woods moment, a pandemic that has already cost more than a million lives. Economic calamity that will make the world economy 4% smaller this year and strip an estimated 11 trillion of output by next year. An untold human desperation in face of huge disruption and rising poverty for the first time in decades. Once again, we face two massive tasks: to fight the crisis today and build a better tomorrow. We know that action must be taken now. A durable economic recovery is only possible if we beat the pandemic. Health measures must remain a priority, and I urge you to support production and distribution of effective therapies and vaccines to ensure that all countries have access. I also urge you to continue to support for workers and business until a durable exit from the health crisis. We have seen a global fiscal actions of 12 trillion. Major central banks have expanded balance sheet by 7.5 trillions. These synchronized measures have prevented the disruptive microfinancial feedback we saw in previous crises. But almost all countries are still hurting, especially emerging markets and developing countries. And while the global banking system entered the crisis with high capital and liquidity buffers, there is a weak tail of banks in many emerging markets. We must take measures to prevent the build-up of financial risk over the medium term. And of course, if you have weak players, becomes a domino effect. And in the end, the big ones will fall as well. Don't make any mistake here. In terms of banks or institutions, because but however, it also depends on the fact, because that usually they are saved by money printing. The governments enter and they're saving them, but that's another story. But so they're talking more about this here. I'm gonna link you, and you can check it up as well. What I wanted to show you here, I'll play the video at this point.
For the future. That includes keeping a careful watch on risks presented by elevated debt. We expect 2021 debt levels to go up significantly to around 125% of GDP in advanced economies, 65% of GDP in emerging markets, and 50% of GDP in low-income countries. The fund is providing debt relief to its poorest members, and with the World Bank, we support extension by the G20 of the debt service suspension initiative. Beyond this, where debt is unsustainable, it should be restructured without delay. We should move towards greater debt transparency and enhanced creditor coordination. I am encouraged by the G20 discussions on a common framework for sovereign debt resolution, as well as on our call for improving the architecture for sovereign debt resolution, including private sector participation. We are there for our member countries, supporting their policies. And policies must be for people. My second imperative. To reap the full benefits of sound economic policy, we must invest.
So it is interesting because they mentioned they forecast for advanced economies to go to 125% of GDP debt, the debt ratio to GDP. For the moment, with US printed, I think, more than 6 trillion, and they reached a 106% ratio. It is interesting to look at this because if they go, let's say, I'm not sure, that's just a forecast. And remember, a forecast is a forecast is a forecast. But it might make sense because it's very probable under the circumstances that they will be forced to print more. And make no mistake, whoever wins the election, I think something. The printing will still go on because they don't have. I don't think they have any other choice. In this context, imagine the printing that will have to go on to reach 125%. This is overall bad news. It will be interesting to see on a global scale what the arrangement is, because they are talking about the new Bretton Woods moment, right? So that's when they define the economical system after the Second World War. So that's a major moment in history, and they're comparing the importance of that moment to what we have today. And imagine we've been through a world war, and now it seems to be a similar situation. They're comparing it to the situation to that moment in terms, of course, of economical perspective mostly. But definitely it's something to keep in mind. And if they manage to print that much, overall it's bad news. However, if you have seen my video on market cycles and different theories that we have seen out there, one theory is that the hyper bubble will inflate more. Because BC Becker said that what we have now doesn't look like a hyper bubble top, so it can pop. We might have a couple of more peaks to go until it pops. If the printing goes on, it makes sense that the hyper bubble, will inflate more. So on the in short term, that could be good, especially for crypto and assets in general. It will be interesting to see. On the long term, it doesn't look good, and it's clear that it's not an optimistic outlook. The more you print, the worse will be. And I think that this is interesting because we've seen this global reset, and it might be very well related to debt as well, to debt in general, to the global debt, because it has increased a lot this year. And I think we are in a state where I don't see any possibility, and I've watched other people say this, and they have much more experience than myself. I'm still learning. I'm really at the beginning of this. It is possible that I'm wrong. Take that in mind. But from what I've seen, and it makes sense, I don't see any way of getting rid of this debt. Right? So something must happen. Something big. So it is possible that this reset, or whatever they say, will take place. What and how it will happen, I don't know. There are the speculations here. Will it affect us? Most probably. You can bet on it. I think it will affect everybody. However, on the short term, if the printing goes on, the stocks will go on, will rise. The crypto will rise as well. it will be interesting to see what happens in the next year. By the way, I really recommend you to watch the entire series of the Hidden Secrets of Money. And in episode 3, I want to play this because it talks about debt and the monetary system in general. The whole episode is about this, and it's by the way, the system is really complex and it's really hard to understand. I think that even specialists don't understand it 100%, and it's really hard to fix. The debt is increasing, and imagine that you have this really complex system, and we have this election-based democracy or systems in general, where we have to elect out the representatives to rule. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm just saying that each of them will get into this system. It's really hard to fix, and they will kick it. They will kick this can up the road until it cannot be, until the road ends. It's not their fault. They're not evil. It's just the system they enter. It's so complex, so hard to fix. Nobody wants to take responsibility for it. This entire series is very interesting to watch, and I will let this play for the moment, because at this point he's trying, Mike Maloney is trying to make a small, short recap about how the system works.
Understand this system, regardless of how complex it is. So let's do a recap and break what people do. It is purposely complex. The economist John Maynard Keynes once wrote, "By this means, government may secretly and unobserved confiscate the wealth of the people, and not one man in a million will detect the theft." I believe that presented correctly, anyone can understand this system, regardless of how complex it is. So let's do a recap and break it down even more. The way the system works is that, step 1, the government creates glorified IOUs. These bonds increase our national debt and put the public on the hook to pay it back. Step 2, IOUs are swapped to create currency. The Treasury sells the bonds to the banks. The banks then turn around and sell our national debt at a profit to the Federal Reserve, which they probably own. The Federal Reserve then opens its checkbook that doesn't have a penny in it and buys those IOUs with IOUs that it writes, checks, on a checking account that has a zero balance. Then they give those checks to the banks and currency just springs into existence, and then the whole process repeats. This results in a buildup of bonds at the Federal Reserve and currency at the Treasury, which is really just a supply of numbers. The Treasury then deposits the numbers in the various branches of the government, and we get to step 3. The government spends the numbers on promises, public works, social programs, and war. Then the government employees, contractors, and soldiers deposit their pay into the banks, and we get to step 4, where the banks multiply the numbers by magically inventing more IOUs through fractional reserve lending, where they steal a portion of everyone's deposit and lend it out. That currency gets redeposited, and then a portion is stolen again, and the process repeats over and over, magnifying the currency supply exponentially. Then we work for some of those numbers, which brings us to step 5, where our numbers are taxed. We pay tax to the IRS, who then turns our numbers over to the Treasury, so the Treasury can pay the principal plus the interest on bonds that were purchased by the Federal Reserve with a check from nothing. Then we get to step 6, the debt ceiling delusion. The system is designed to require ever-increasing levels of debt and will eventually collapse under its own weight because politicians always kick the can down the road. They don't want it to collapse on their watch. And finally, step 7, the secret owners take their cut. The world's largest banks own the Federal Reserve. Those banks make a profit selling our national debt to the Fed. They make a profit when the Fed pays them interest on the reserves held at the Fed, and the Fed pays them a 6% dividend on their ownership of the Fed. This system is fundamentally evil, It funnels wealth from the working population to the government and the banking sector. It is the cause of the artificial booms and busts of modern economies, and it causes great disparity of wealth between the rich and the working class. And it is only possible because we no longer use real money, we use currency. But worst of all, it is a form of enslavement. Bond is the root word of bondage. Whenever a government issues a bond, it is a promise to make us pay tax in the future. Nobody asked you if you wanted to pay tax today for the prosperity we all enjoyed in the last century. Nobody is asking our children if they want to work hard in the future to pay for the prosperity we're enjoying now. George Washington once wrote to James Madison, "No generation has the right to contract debts greater than can be paid off during the course of its own existence." By stealing prosperity from tomorrow so we can spend it today, we enslave ourselves and future generations. Now this all sounds pretty bad, but there is great hope, for you are the greatest threat to this false monetary system. This system relies on the public being ignorant of its workings. Please share this knowledge with everyone you know, because an informed public that fully understands the system can build a better future for generations to come. And now I leave you with this quote, widely attributed to a former director of the Bank of England. "The modern banking system manufactures money out of nothing. The process is perhaps the most astounding piece of sleight of hand that was ever invented. Banking was conceived in inequity and born in sin. Bankers own the earth. Take it away from them, but leave them the power to create money and control credit, and with the flick of a pen, they will create enough money to buy it back again. But if you want to continue as the slaves of bankers and pay the cost of your own slavery, let them continue to create money and to control credit." This is the Federal Reserve in Washington.
So yeah, I think this is something that you need to re-watch a couple of times. I certainly did. I mean, if you look at it, it kind of looks stupid, right? It looks stupid, but it's happening. It's happening. It's in real life. And the funny fact is that basically, I know you know that if you have seen my previous videos, I'm mentioning that inflation is the hidden tax, right? So basically, the fact that money printing is either way going on. So basically, your money values less, but it's usually it's in longer periods of time. The problem is that basically that happens. The same amount of money is redistributed from everyone. That only creates bigger discrepancy between middle class, lower class, and upper class. So the even sad part is if, for example, taxes are increased and money printing is increased, we'll pay taxes after tax after tax, because you're gonna pay the inflation tax hidden, and you're also going to pay the raise taxes. So and also keep in mind that there will be some that will say that no, we will not increase taxes. We actually will make smaller taxes. If they say that, you have to be careful and see basically how much money is printed during that period, because if money is printed, basically you will still get tax, but you will get the hidden tax, right? So they will say that you will have less tax, but you actually will have hidden taxes. So I'm back. Sorry, I had to check up on my kid. So yeah, keep that in mind. I mean, you will end up paying tax in either case, but you can actually see if they're trying to mask this, right? So we're not going to give you taxes, but we're going to print more money. So that's basically will create more hidden tax for you. On the other part, keep in mind that if, for example, they're saying we are also going to increase the taxes, and we are also going to print a lot of money, then it's basically the worst case scenario. Yeah, I think that's it for from this perspective. But it's something it's something that you really need to take in. Okay, so another interesting news that I've seen today. U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell will speak October 19th at the International Monetary Fund's annual meeting. He will speak on the subject of cross-border payments and digital currencies as part of live stream panel at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. So, you know that we talked in the past for IMF and a lot of other organizations are considering cross-border payments, something that are very important. And even in the G20, you know that I published a video a few days before that the G20 has a roadmap to improve the cross-border payment. So yeah, I think it gets more and more attention. Another thing that I wanted to show you, and I'm going to go here with this is something that I've seen in many locations, but I'm going to refer to the digital asset investors video. So it's actually funny because the Ripple CEO went on Fox Business live, and they cut him off when he said something, and it's interesting to see his reaction and at what point he was cut off.
Brad Garlinghouse on Mornings with Maria mentions Digital Commodity Exchange Act and immediately gets cut off. The one time they show XRP prices 26 cents in red, they don't want you all to hop on board the ship. So watch. I remember joking about how he looked shocked that they had turned it off on him, but I was not thinking about the fact that he had just mentioned the Digital Commodity Exchange Act. Watch this.
Introduced, it's called the Digital Commodity Exchange Act, that was introduced in Congress in, I believe, the Ag Committee, and there's bipartisan support.
Somebody literally pushed the button on him the second he said that.
You don't want to cede all of this innovation to China, Brad. You make a very important point. I'm glad there's at least the beginning of it in Congress. We'll keep talking about this.
So if you have ever wondered.
So it's very interesting to see a couple of things. When he was interrupted, what his reaction was. I mean, he was kind of surprised, and it also shows that it surprised and irritated. And on the left side, the interviewer basically is kind of it shows that she was trying to save the situation by changing the subject or continuing with the previous subject very fast, right? So it's really interesting to see, and actually it's the micro expressions are something that I've studied in the past as a hobby. If you've seen, it's all started with Lie to Me, the series, but then I found out that it's based on real stuff. It's on the work of Dr. Paul Ekman, and you see that he has a lot of books there, and Unmasking the Face is one of them, and he shows you and explains micro expressions there and the combination of micro expressions. So it's really interesting to look at those books and to apply them in real life. That's a side note, but definitely here it's kind of obvious, right? It's obvious that something happened there, and I don't know exactly the reason behind it, because of course you can all say that it's only speculation, but if you put one and one together, it looks to be two. Maybe you are wrong, it's not one and one, maybe it's something else, but let's see how the things progress. Another thing that actually appeared right after that is the Trump. By the way, you know that we talked about this when representatives from Ripple came in, and even Brad and Chris Larsen said that they are considering to move from US because it's no clarity in regulation. It doesn't seem to be very organized, and there are too many institutions that are seeing crypto differently. So they need to have clarity. So that at that point there are a lot of speculations as well, as you see here in this space. I also told you that it seems to be from my perspective, and that I like to keep an open mind. I like to think about different possibilities, and one possibility that I thought about, and it seemed to go into that direction, is that they were trying to get the attention of the government. They were trying to get the stage, and they were trying to push things faster. And this is interesting because we've seen today the news. Trump security hawks call distributed ledger critical in US-China tech arms. By the way, both Chris Larson and Brad Garlinghouse, and you can see in my previous videos, mentioned that US regulators in the past have given green light to Bitcoin and Ethereum, and in this process they have favorized technologies that are pro-China, because some of the big mining pools in both cases are in China, and you can see more what he's saying there. And I don't want to get into this debate because I'm not saying it's correct or it's not correct. I'm just saying what they said. The fact is that we see this today, that the Trump administration has included distributed ledger technologies, DLT, the granddaddy tech behind cryptocurrency and blockchain, and its strategy for preserving America's technological supremacy over China and Russia. DLT is one of the 20 focus areas of the National Security Council's Critical and Emerging Technologies shortlist released Thursday. The NSC's strategy calls for investing in developing, adopting, and promoting the priority technologies. Also on the shortlist, AI, data science and quantum computing, and space technology, weapons of the mass destruction, mitigation technology, and others. Well, let me go here. We also have, if we go whitehouse.gov, National Strategy for Critical and Emerging Technologies. You can see here the critical and emerging technologies list reflects the 20 technology areas that United States government departments and agencies identifies to the National Security Council staff as priority for their missions. The list will be reviewed and updated annually via the interagency process coordinated by National Security Council staff. The technology areas are arranged alphabetically. Well, you see here distributed ledger technologies, and I said before that it seems that Ripple is trying to get attention on this matter. I do believe they think it's very serious, and they think that it's a good time for US to step up. If that is the case, and they wanted to do that, and it's not only for show, maybe it was already arranged in behind the scenes. Maybe this was already in play, and it's a very high chance it was already in play. Maybe they just wanted to let the people know they had something to do with this. But of course, again, speculations. I'm just. It seems that definitely that was achieved in terms of. They want. It appears that this technology has received the proper attention from the government, and I'm not saying that it hasn't been before, because I've seen, that my stance on this. I think this year was huge in terms of cryptocurrency, with the fact that the government gave a green light for banks to custody crypto. I mean, that's huge. I mean, it's basically it's the green light for starting the game. We have other steps to go after this, of course, and this is a part of it. But yeah, this is happening. So For the moment, I think I said that it would be a very I will try to keep a short video, but I don't think I managed to do that, so I apologize for it. I remembered about some stuff that I wanted to talk about during the video. Also, if you like the video, if you like the information here, if you thought it was helpful, please hit the like button, the subscribe button, the all bells notification, and share it with your friends and family. I always forget to tell this to you in the beginning of the video. I'm wondering how many of you are actually listening to this. So yeah, thank you very much for listening and for watching, and see you in the next one. Have a great day.